Afternoon, Tim. How you doing?
Afternoon, Shaba. I'm good. Nice to see you. You're back from Canada.
I'm back from my epic summer holiday, which was delightful. Yeah, absolutely fantastic time. I actually I think I've been away for nearly 4 weeks from the
Nice.
office, sort of 3 and a bit weeks of actual holiday, and then I came back, and first couple of days were just at home, sort of sorting stuff out, and then the weekend came. So it's Monday the 18th of August recording this, and I'm officially back in the office, which feels a bit strange after being I've never spent that long a time not sort of in work mode.
Mm.
It was actually quite refreshing. So I don't know whether I can take a few more sort of extended holidays in the
Mm.
future like this. But yeah, we went to Canada, saw a grizzly bear in Banff National Park, which was a real highlight and a great experience. So yeah, I'm feeling very blessed and privileged to have been able to go away
Mm.
and do some wonderful stuff with the family.
Great. And you say it feels weird to be back in the office. The point is, offices are weird, right? I mean, offices are weird. The
Yeah,
way most of us work is weird. There's nothing very natural about any of
yeah,
it. Grizzly bears don't have offices or money, and nothing you'll have seen in the national park has. And we humans just sort of create this stuff and then we feel very trapped by it. And it can be useful, of course. So I think that experience of thinking it's
yeah.
weird is very healthy. Maybe it's not going to be today, but maybe we do an episode soon about holidays or coming back from holidays, or because it's all about money life stuff, isn't it?
You know what? It's so true. When you just said offices are weird, I met some people on there that their office was the national park kind of thing, and the lakes and the mountains, and I'm like, wow, there were some pretty cool jobs that I came across whilst I was on my travels, and people with different sort of money life paths, which yeah, might tie in quite nicely. So we'll go there maybe next week.
Mm, okay, sounds good. Um, and I wanted to bring something because you've been away, and I saw something on LinkedIn actually today, and it really made me smile because of conversations I've had with various people over the years, and a good friend in particular. Um, and I just thought it was really interesting. So can I read it? It's
Go.
actually it's about going from shared meals with friends
Yeah,
and how you decide whether you pay individually or collectively. So let me read this post that came up. I'll summarize the whole thing and then I'll
yeah.
dive into the bit I wanted to discuss. He's saying that there's a academic study about something called the unscrupulous diner's dilemma. And the first idea is when people know they're going to split the bill, they all order more expensive dishes
Mm.
and eat and drink more. So it's like there's some sort of mechanism, whereas there's a study that if you know you're just going to pay individually, typically people will choose reasonably priced or mid-priced things on average. But when they know everyone's going to split the bill, everybody buys more stuff. So I think that's really interesting psychologically. But then he goes on to talk about a follow-up study. So the academic is called Yuri Niza, Gneezy. And he says the author of the study, Yuri Niza, questions why we would ever agree to share the bill. So they did a follow-up study, and this is what I wanted to discuss. They found that 80% of people, so 4 out of 5 of us, prefer to get individual bills when they go out for group meals. In other words, people don't like sharing the bill. And then he asked the guy who writes this post, why is it not done more? Why don't we share more? If 80% of people want to share, but on the whole, we don't share 80% of the time, why not? And he just has one sentence, which I wanted to dive in. He says, because there's the social cost of appearing stingy. So I wanted to talk, maybe that's the title for this podcast,
Mm.
I'm not sure. The social cost of appearing stingy.
Okay.
What
Just
do you think?
yeah, I just wanted to. So the study said that people don't like to share the bill, or they do like to share the
No,
bill.
they prefer not to. 80% of people would prefer, when they're out with their friends, to agree to pay individually.
Okay, but the general consensus is that you split the bill, but secretly you'd want to pay individually rather than splitting it.
Yeah, I think what he's suggesting is if you have a group of people,
Yeah,
80% of them would prefer to pay individually,
yeah,
but people don't say it. So
uh,
everyone agrees to pay together,
yeah,
or they keep quiet about the fact they don't want to.
yeah,
And then as a result, they order more expensive food and drink
yeah,
to compensate, all because, according to him in this
yeah,
study, people are scared or a bit concerned about saying, hang on a minute, I just want to pay for myself.
yeah.
And he's saying it's because we don't like to appear stingy.
Right.
Does
So then
that
you
make
order, yeah.
sense?
So then you order more to sort of
Yeah,
compensate from the
to
fact that
compensate.
you might get shortchanged if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
then didn't order the
yeah,
steak and you just ordered a salad.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
I just find it fascinating because I don't think I ever go out in a group where we agree beforehand that we're going to sort of
Mm.
split it. So it's not a dilemma that I face, but I can imagine people that go out a lot in sort of social settings. Um, yeah, I could probably see it's easier just to say, right, we're just going to split the bill rather than everyone calculate individually what they've ordered, which could be, a little bit problematic from you know, getting your calculator out and starting to sort of do all the
Well,
maths individually.
yeah, it could be. I don't think it's actually that
Oh, okay.
complicated,
What's
but
your
it's just.
experience from going out with
Oh,
friends? And
I'm too old. I never go out in groups for meals
yeah,
these
yeah,
days. I was thinking about when you said people who go out a lot, I was thinking about young people.
yeah.
I can say my experience, but I was also thinking there's a famous book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I don't know if people will
I've
know
heard
it.
it, but I've never read it.
Well, I may be getting this wrong, so someone can tell
Okay.
me if I've got it a bit wrong. But my memory is one of the spaceships which can kind of fly through time and space and do extraordinary things is some sort of hugely advanced improbability calculator. And it's fueled by trying to solve the algorithm of who pays what at a group meal. So Douglas Adams is saying it's so impossible.
Uh,
What's my experience? I think my experience in those situations, which I'm not in often, is very similar to the research. Apart from I don't overorder, I prefer to do things individually most of the time, partly because I don't drink, and drink is very expensive in
mm,
restaurants. So to me, it seems very reasonable. And also don't tend to overeat, right? This isn't
mm,
because I particularly don't want to spend money, but I'm blessed with the ability to generally just eat what fills me up and then
yeah,
stop. And I don't drink lots of alcohol. So it's not unusual unless I say something that I would be in that situation of paying sometimes a fair bit more for stuff that I didn't eat. Now, what's interesting is I don't know, I think often I will say it. And the other thing is, I like to think that I'm very happy if I go out with a friend, just because I
yeah,
often go out one on one, I'm more than happy to say, let me buy you dinner.
yeah,
So it's like I don't have a problem buying someone's dinner and
yeah,
buying drinks for them. I'm very happy to do it. I like to do it. It's no problem. I think there's something about the assumption that, oh, yeah, we're all going to split it.
yeah.
Doesn't feel. I think it might be that when you buy someone dinner, they look at you and they say, thank you. But when you split the bill and they've eaten and drunk twice as much as you, they don't say thank you. It doesn't feel like you've bought them a drink or
Yeah.
dinner. So I don't know. I need to go deep on that.
There's so much going
Yeah,
on here. I can't even
yeah,
imagine how to unpack it. I'm just thinking about when we went out, when we met for the first time about a month ago, and
yeah.
we were having lunch. You actually said, how are we? I can't remember the phrase, but you actually asked, okay, how are we doing the money, or how are we paying for this?
I think I was having to leave. I think it was at the end,
Yeah,
and I think I had to leave before you two.
yeah,
And my memory is I offered to pay. Well, I'm very
yeah,
happy to pay, and then you said no, and then
yeah.
I said
But you
thank you
brought it
very
up.
much.
You brought it
Oh
up.
yeah,
Whereas
oh yeah,
in our circles,
yeah.
whenever I go out, so I've got a group of three friends, we just take
Mm.
it in turn.
Oh, but that's fair enough,
But that's because we have a set meetup every couple of months. So
right?
we know that. rather than we're going to meet up again in a couple of months, so we just take it in turns to pay the bill. That works really well, except one time I think we went to a really expensive place, so the person that was paying that time ended up paying more than we would on an average. So, but he was okay with that. But when we go out in groups, someone always feels the need to pick up the bill and pay for the group.
Well, that's interesting.
When there's sort of maybe 3 or 4 people, and I don't know whether there's especially within, I don't know, Indian culture, etc., there's like a real pride in like being the person. And I have this vision of like trying to grab the receipt. Like my parents, when we would go out with other families and stuff, there would be this fight, almost like a play fight of, no, I'm paying. And then
yeah, I've seen that.
Have you seen that?
I often tell this story at my money workshops. I was once running a 2-day money workshop with a group in central London. And I think it was the first night, I think we started in the evening or something. I went for dinner by myself locally because I'd arrived from Bristol, sitting, and I was observing people because I like to observe people. And there were 2 kind of late middle age, maybe 50s, maybe early 60s women. And as far as I could see, they were friends who'd come into London. They'd had a lovely day. They were shopping. Maybe they'd seen the show. They had shopping bags. They'd obviously spent a bit of money and they were having a lovely time and they're having a good old chat. And then the bill came.
Yeah.
And I think we should talk about this because there may be 2 moves, right? We've talked, you and I, in maybe it was even episode 2 or 3, about the 2 money moves of grabbing money or pushing money away.
Yeah.
So in this case, they both wanted to pay.
Yeah.
So one said, let me pay. And I see this a lot, actually. The other person, for whatever reason, found it immensely difficult to let them pay.
Yeah.
So said, no, let me.
Yeah.
And then the first one, for whatever reason, found it immensely difficult to let that person pay. So they said, no, let me. And it went from a very lovely evening to a bit of tension where they were neither able to go, oh, why don't we just split it?
Yeah.
Or even more, they seemed totally unable, as far as I could see, for one of them to go, thank you very much for buying me dinner. Now, there we're getting back into the energy of receiving, and we've done podcasts on receiving and receiving gifts and what happens if you feel you receive too much. I think for today, at some point we'll dive in. So anyone listening could think about all the weird psychology that's going on when the bill comes in a group meal or a shared meal. And anyone listening, you might be thinking, well, am I always the first because I need to pay? Or am I worried I have to pay too much? Or am I this? Again, our money patterns, what we call the money dance, they show up everywhere. So you can see them. Now, so when you and I met with your brother-in-law, and we had a nice meeting, it was kind of worky, businessy.
Yeah.
And I guess it's something I do a lot. I'm offer to pay, or at least I raise the question of, well, I've got to go to another meeting now. I don't want to take anything for granted. So the one thing is, coming back to the LinkedIn post, how comfortable do people feel even saying, who's going to pay? Or how shall we organise the bill? Which is a perfectly reasonable question, right? It's perfectly reasonable.
How should we organise the bill feels like the easiest words to say. But it's like no one will say it because.
Well, I will.
Yeah, well,
I say it.
Yeah, how are we going to? So I think everyone's just feeling a little bit on edge when the bill comes in a group. So, I don't know. I'm just in a lot of situations. It's like, when there's a group of people, how do you sort of? Because I think what you're saying about that not wanting to appear stingy, like, do you say, right, okay, I'm going to split it? Or are we going to split it? Or is everyone going to pay individually? They're sort of like loaded questions because there could be a lot of judgment around.
Well, let's slow down because I think we're really into something here. So the first is, when the bill comes, we get to do our money dance and we get to see everyone else do their money dance. That's the first thing. So a lot is revealed. Actually, you said these are loaded questions. I would say it slightly differently. The questions are not loaded. The questions are perfectly reasonable questions. How shall we organize the bill? What would you prefer? I would prefer this. What makes it loaded is the considerable amount of emotional energy that I don't know if it's everybody or many people or most people. Might not be everybody. Some
Yeah.
people might be like, yeah, it's all really fine. But somehow it's like settling the bill becomes a microcosm, and it's a public shared money dance, right? I
Yeah.
get to see what does Shaba do, Shaba gets to see what I do. And so the questions aren't loaded. But if I'm carrying strong emotions, and also if I'm carrying, it's like another level, a judgment of my own emotions. So
Yeah.
maybe, well, let me give the example of a very good friend. We talked about them before the podcast. And this person is a nurse who's in rented accommodation. And obviously, anyone in the UK will know that nurses living in rented accommodation probably aren't that flush,
Mm.
right? Nurses very badly paid. And this person is also a non drinker, right? So it's perfectly reasonable if they go out for a meal with other people in different jobs to just say, actually, I just prefer to pay for what I eat, right?
Mm.
None of that's loaded. The question is what's bubbling underneath about fear of being stingy, or even a judgment I may have about my circumstances or my stinginess. Because anytime I'm fearing someone else's judgment,
Mm.
what will so and so think? It's really, I'm only worried about their judgment if I kind of hold the same judgment.
Interesting.
Like if you think I'm stingy, and I already know I'm stingy, and I know it's fine to be stingy because I don't have much money,
Yeah.
then it's okay. I am stingy. I don't have much money, and I don't drink, so I'm going to be
And
healthily,
yeah.
consciously stingy.
And that's okay. There's
Yeah,
no.
yeah. But it's a perfectly valid thing. Again, we've said often when we look at projections in money work, this idea with projections, and we talked about it in earlier episodes, that we tangle up parts of our human complexity into money.
Mm.
So underneath every word, stingy might be a pejorative word,
What do you mean by
but
pejorative?
there's a judgmental word.
Okay.
Yeah, judgmental, like you don't
Yeah.
want to be stingy.
Yeah.
But the energy, if I can use it consciously, and if I can use it without shame at the right time of going, actually, I would rather keep my money to pay my heating bills
Mm.
and my rent than buy you lots of drinks tonight.
Mm.
You could say that's a very useful energy in taking care of myself.
Yeah, it's stingy. I mean, sometimes when we're doing this work, and we've
Mm.
come across, we use words like stingy,
Mm.
and I think irresponsible has come up a few times. When we're looking about being clever or irresponsible with money,
Mm.
and all of these things. So stingy indicates that you don't want to, that you're sort of tight with money. Would that be
Mm-hmm.
would? And so I'm guessing that I've always got the idea of stingy, that you've got money but you just don't want to spend it.
Yes.
So I just don't want people to get confused in terms of when we're
Yes.
saying stingy, because
Yeah.
in your situation, your friend might be very free and generous, but they just don't have the money to
No.
be free and generous. So are they actually
Yeah.
being stingy,
Yes.
and do they need to reclaim that stinginess, or is it
Yes.
actually a different quality?
No, it's a great question. And we'd only know for sure by really doing
Yeah.
deep work with that person. But I think what I would say is all of these words, stingy, irresponsible, greedy, they're kind of often the negative words we tie up with
Mm.
certain money behaviors. And my starting point would be to say all of them are pointing to ways of behaving that can be perfectly healthy and useful for any human being. So whether someone has money or doesn't have money, there are times where the right thing is to use the energy of stinginess, right?
Mm.
The problem always, and we've talked about this before, the problem always is when I'm fixed into one way of being
mm,
So I'm always stingy. I'm always holding on to my money. I never want to let go of it. I never want to spend on others. Then that's a problem, not because of some moral judgment, but because it limits me in life. I can't, maybe I'm so scared of losing my money or so worried about some
mm,
future anxiety that my whole body and energy in life becomes this quite tight, holding on,
mm,
can't let go gesture. That's a problem, not because of someone's moral judgment, but because my life becomes tight and small. But it's also worth saying that the opposite can also become a problem if it's unconscious. So let's say the opposite of stinginess is being generous, let's say. And then you might think, many people might think, well, in general, Tim, good to be generous, not so good to be stingy. Okay,
mm,
that's what I meant by
mm,
pejorative. Well, yeah, but now let's go back to the person who, whenever there's a group meal, always like, I'll pay or let me
yeah,
pay. Or now there might be two reasons of doing that. One is it may be they are a truly free, relaxed,
mm,
trusting, warm person who has money. And genuinely, it's a very natural, loving, conscious act to say, I will pay. That's beautiful. More often, go back to the two ladies in the restaurant, it's almost that my way of relieving the anxiety of dealing with who pays and what will it
mm,
mean and will it be, it's just go, oh, I'll pay.
yeah,
So I think many people are like that. I've had a tendency to be like that. I've had a
mm,
tendency in the past to go into pubs and somehow feel a pressure that to relieve the anxiety of my feeling of slight awkwardness about who
yeah,
will pay or any uncomfortable feelings, I'll often just say, I'll pay.
yeah,
I don't think that's generosity. I think that's an
no,
attempt to relieve my anxiety.
yeah,
What do you think?
yeah. I think there can actually be numerous reasons behind why someone might be that kind of I'll pay. One of them
Yes.
diffusing the tension. They just can't deal with the awkwardness and that's one reason. Second thing that I was thinking was you're trying to portray that you've got your
Could
stuff,
be.
you got your shit together, basically.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no problem for me. There
Yes.
and to come across as generous. Whereas in, like you said, if it's coming from an authentic, conscious place, great. But if it's that you're trying to hide something, then that's problematic because you're not
Mm.
congruent then.
No.
Um, and I also think sometimes it comes from a sense of maybe responsibility where you know that, let's say, the other person isn't financially as well off as you.
Mm.
And so is that being generous, or does it feel like a moral obligation that I
Mm.
have more money in my life, therefore I should
Mm.
therefore I should pay. So those
Mm.
were a few of the things that were sort of swimming around.
Mm.
Because I've been in all of those sort of situations, I think, where I've like volunteered to pay for the bill.
Mm.
I can recall situations where it's been, all of those.
Mm. I think that's great. And people could listen. And as we know, we talk about detective work in this, about what's really going on here. So, superficially, either myself or I might observe a friend or someone on another table, I might be very quick to make a judgment of they're generous or they're a bit stingy. And as well as having no idea about their actual situation, I certainly have no idea about what's going on emotionally, psychologically. So, a great first step is just to be more honest with ourselves about where am I coming from when I'm getting my wallet out first, or splitting the bill when I don't want to, or indeed when I'm saying, hang on, I love you all, I've had a lovely evening, but I would very much prefer just to pay for
Yeah,
my food and drink tonight. And the key, I would say, is how do I feel when
mm,
I'm doing whatever I do?
yeah,
Because in your example, and you can imagine, there's a tremendous difference, I think, of I will pay the bill because somehow inside in that moment it's congruent because I'm genuinely feeling resourced
mm,
and blessed and maybe very loving of these, and like I really do want to
mm,
do that. Like it's a congruent, aligned act. But in other examples you've given, I'm doing it because I want to appear like that, but inside maybe I don't. So I'm a little
yeah,
bit split. It might be actually a more congruent, loving act to be very honest with myself about how I actually do
yeah,
feel and find some way to bring that into the
yeah,
conversation. So if I think about my good friend in a funny sort of way, a very powerful, authentic act would be to say, hey, everyone, it's great. And I don't have very much money and I don't drink. Here's what I would like. I would like to do this. And on one level, that might appear superficially stingy, but it's actually a very clear, powerful,
yeah,
authentic act. In some way, then it's a very generous act because I'm really being honest, I'm speaking the truth, I'm trusting people.
yeah.
So it's actually quite generous if I'm honest about my stinginess. And we find these sorts of funny, yeah, it's like counterintuitive.
Yeah. I mean, immediately when you said that, to state your preference
Mm.
authentically
Mm.
comes across immensely powerful. And yeah, I could feel a sense of, oh wow, that's really like owning the room kind of thing in that respect. And I was just thinking, oh, but would someone, if someone said, oh, I don't have a lot of money at the moment, and I know you can't predict how other people will react to that
No.
statement, but the usual thing would be is then, maybe pity or sympathy, or don't worry, we'll take care of the bill and all of that. So it opens up and socially quite an awkward thing to say, even though it could be very true, authentic, and quite powerful. I don't think a lot of people are ready to hear that kind of level of,
Well, that's why we're doing our podcast,
yeah,
right? Why we're doing this podcast is to try and make these everyday money situations a place where we can be more aligned and more conscious
yeah,
and realize that it really is okay. And all the kind of heaviness or tension or
yeah,
awkwardness is stuff in our own minds and our own
yeah,
consciousness.
yeah,
It doesn't need to be like that, but also that we can use anytime I do feel tense or
yeah,
awkward or etc. I can use that as a gateway into, "Ooh, I need to discover something here or learn something for
yeah.
myself here."
And what is the shame about saying, I'm not very well resourced at the moment and I'd like to just pay
Yes.
and let the other people deal with it? Because obviously, if it's
Yes.
going to be a problem
Well,
for them.
yes. Well, there's 2 points, but I'm going to change your phrase slightly here.
Go-
I would not think someone in that situation should say, "I'm not well resourced,"
Yeah.
because they may be resourced
Okay.
in
Yeah.
many
You're right.
ways
I'm trying to skirt around it.
that aren't to do with money, you see. If we make the mistake, which is a money path, a money logic mistake, and we've talked about that idea before, if I confuse being resourced with having money,
Yeah.
then when I don't have money, I might feel under-resourced. But resource is many things. I have
Yeah.
inner resources, I have confidence, I have spiritual faith, I have friends, I have joy in life. I could be blessed in many, many, many ways and really feel myself to be resourced.
Yeah.
And right now, maybe just because of my choice of work or
Yeah.
because I didn't get family support when I was younger or
Yeah.
for 100 different reasons, money might not be there for me, but I may have other things that resource me. We talked about this a lot when we talked about poverty, deeper meaning of
Mm,
poverty. So I would never say I'm not resourced. I would say I'm on a tight budget
yeah.
and I would like to pay just for what I eat and drink.
Yeah. I think for me, it just feels like as soon as you say, I don't have a lot of money or I don't have the money, that suddenly makes it very, and that might be just a me thing.
I think that's bringing up something for you and maybe the
Yeah, but
subculture in which
whereas
you operate.
slightly softer the way you just said it. I'm on a tight budget, and yeah,
Yeah.
that feels. As soon as the word money comes in, I'm like,
Well,
oh,
that's
that's
some
opening up a
detective.
can of worms. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good
I
detective work
think
for me.
it is, I think. And we could do even another step, not with you, which is why do I need to give any explanation at all?
That's
Perhaps I could not say I'm under-resourced,
yeah.
or
I'd
perhaps I
like
could
to.
just say,
I'd like to
it's
pay
been a
for what I
lovely
want.
evening. I would like to pay for what I had.
Yeah.
Now, the key here is, can I say it shame or judgment in myself,
Yeah.
right? Because if I'm carrying an awkwardness or shame or judgment, which many people will be, the whole thing gets a bit. But if I can just think, well, it's fine. I've had a nice time. I'll pay for what I've had. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. I can't, and this was the point you made, I have no control over how other people will respond. I don't know what it will bring up for them. I don't know what it will trigger, or none of that's my business. But I have absolutely the right to say how I would like to organise the bill and know
Yeah.
that that's really fine.
Yeah. I almost feel like I want to arrange a big dinner just to try it out and say, yeah, I'd like to just pay for what I've eaten today. Thank you.
Try
That would be
it.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
Try it.
Almost just to go against the grain, because I think
Yeah.
that's where that
Yeah.
a lot of insight and growth happens, because you don't know until you actually are in the situation, or whatever the
Yeah. You
scenario
don't know.
is.
I have actually been to dinners like that. As part of me exploring this work, I met a few years ago some artists who were exploring money, and they would put on dinners. In fact, they would cook and produce the dinners. And then I can't remember their general model, but they were somewhere in between them being artists, caterers, and money explorers. So
Okay.
they create these dinners, and then at the end, I think they just sort of put a pot and they said, well, please pay whatever you would like. And it might cover our costs, it might not cover our
Mm,
costs, it might give us a surplus, but they did that. And then once I was part of it, I didn't put on the event, there was a very large conference in Bristol with kind of artists who are doing interesting social stuff. And these two artists produced food for the whole meal. I reckon there would have been 150 people, 100 people, like a conference.
mm,
And they did the same thing. And so they would have worked for a week or two or whatever, I don't know,
yeah,
to produce all the food. And then I think they put this big bowl. I think they actually put it in one of the toilets, which was a mistake, by the way. They
yeah,
shouldn't have put it in the toilet. Um, and I think maybe the organization hosting them put some money in there, but then
yeah.
they left it and they said, right, everyone at the conference, you can add money or you can take money. And
Oh,
what's left is what we will get for having prepared this
oh,
meal. And I think quite a lot of people took money, and it all went a bit messy, really.
yeah,
I wasn't designing the experiment. I was part of the event. I would have advised them to do it slightly differently, and having it in the toilet is not a good place to
no,
have conscious money conversations.
no,
But anyway, the point of that slightly rambly story is you could, and people listening to this, you can do money experiments, and you can do them around a round of drinks or a meal. And the experiment could be just personal, could just be do something different, could be just try and notice what's going on and just stay with the anxiety or the
yeah,
awkwardness. Or it could be something very creative of actually, maybe I've also had friends who've done this. You go out for your group meal, and when the pudding or the coffee comes, you go, right, well, I've been doing this podcast.
yeah,
I'm really interested in all the different ways we could settle this bill and
yeah.
all the different emotions that could come up.
Oh,
Let's
fantastic.
have a chat, and how about we find the most elegant way to settle this bill, or the most fun way to
Yeah.
settle this bill,
And do
or
you
the
mind if I
most
record this?
surprising.
And do you mind
Yeah,
if I just record this conversation whilst
it
we're
would be
doing it?
great.
It'd be fantastic. I was just thinking that back in my work days when I used to work and people used to go out for drinks and stuff like that, I always used to hear stories about who didn't buy around and who was
Right.
tight and this, that, the other. And like British sort of culture, I'm saying British culture, stereotyping, but you go down the pub and obviously like you might have a group of 5 or 6, and it's everyone's turn to buy, right, my round, my round, my round. And obviously if you leave before like it's your round, then you've basically had 4 or 5 drinks and not had to pay. But then you get a bit of a maybe black mark against your name as he didn't buy a round, and then you'll have someone who might have bought 2 rounds. It gets very politically kind of I don't know what the word is, but
Mm,
yeah, yeah, pub politics maybe,
yeah,
and money politics around what's going on there. Really, really strange, but that a lot of this is playing out all the time in these environments.
it is all the time. I think there's something about meals and pubs, as I say, it makes it very, for a few moments of time,
Mm,
we're all there with our money dances exposed for all to see, and it brings up awkwardness. So, any way of just being conscious about that, playing your own dance differently, or taking the bold step to invite other people into the conversation would be super interesting,
yeah.
really. And one key would be to think, well, maybe often it's just about minimizing anxiety, right? We organize it this way, or we take it for granted, or we don't say what we really want, or I get my wallet out. Because actually, what we're really doing here is we're just trying to minimize or push away the awkwardness or the
Mm,
anxiety. So, a great experiment would be to say, well, if we try to arrange it where the purpose wasn't just to minimize the awkwardness. It was something far more fun or beautiful or bonding or playful or whatever word, spiritual, whatever
mm,
word you wanted, it would raise a whole other possible way of organizing the bill.
mm,
But you might have the price you would pay for finding something better is you would all have to be a little bit more present to your awkwardness or
yeah.
anxiety or whatever was stirred up for you.
Perfect. I think that was a good conversation to have. Key takeaways, I guess, are to be more aware of the emotions that are coming up when the bill and the conversation happens, and just exploring as to what's going on, and what's your default action. Is it to secretly want something but not speak up, or
Mm.
take out your wallet and maybe try and force the issue? And I think that would be a good thing for people to do, and then get back in touch and tell us.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. Yeah,
All right,
great.
Tim, I'll speak to you next time.
See you next week.